When you hear Syria, what comes to mind? War zones? Destruction? Refugees fleeing their homeland? What if I told you there is another Syria that exists right now, one where families gather every evening for elaborate feasts, where ancient bazaars still buzz with merchants hawking spices that have traveled the same trade routes for millennia, and where a person can live quite comfortably on just $600 a month? This isn't the Syria you see in headlines. This is the Syria where life goes on with remarkable resilience and warmth. We're at Damascus, one of the world's oldest continuously inhabited cities. Still echoes with the call to prayer from minarets built over 1,000 years ago, where the aroma of fresh bread and brewing Arabic coffee fills narrow stone alleyways that have witnessed the rise and fall of empires. After decades of conflict that seemed endless, something remarkable happened in December 2024. The Assad regime, which had ruled Syria for over 50 years, suddenly collapsed. Within 12 days, opposition forces led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham swept across the country and took Damascus. Bashar al-Assad fled to Moscow, and for the first time in generations, Syrians are cautiously optimistic about their future. But here's what's fascinating throughout all these years of upheaval. Daily life in Syria never stopped. Families kept breaking bread together. Vendors kept selling their wares in ancient souks. Children kept playing in cobblestone streets. And people kept finding ways to make $600 stretch further than you believe possible. Today, we're going to take you inside this Syria, the one that exists beyond the news cameras. We'll show you how families of four live comfortably on what many Americans spend on groceries alone. We'll walk through markets where you can feast for less than $3, and we'll meet people whose hospitality will challenge everything you think you know about this ancient land. This is a story about survival, culture, and the incredible human capacity to find joy even in the most challenging circumstances. This is the Syria you never imagined. Syria sits at the crossroads of three continents: Asia, Africa, and Europe, which explains why it's been the center of world attention for thousands of years. Not just the past decade. This location made it the ultimate highway for ancient empires, traders, and ideas flowing between east and west. The country stretches from the Mediterranean coastline in the west, where ancient Phoenician cities once dominated maritime trade, through fertile plains that earned Syria the nickname, the breadbasket of the Roman Empire, and eastward into the vast Arabian desert. The geography is so diverse that in a single day, you could swim in the Mediterranean, walk through snow-capped mountains, and watch the sunset over desert dunes. But it's the cities that truly tell Syria's story. Damascus, the capital, claims to be the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world, and the archaeological evidence backs this up. People have been living here for over 11,000 years. That means Damascus was ancient when Rome was just a collection of hills, and it was a major city when London was still a forest. The city of Aleppo, in the north, was equally important historically. Its massive citadel, which still dominates the skyline, has been fortified for over 5,000 years. The souks of Aleppo were considered the most important trading center between Asia and the Mediterranean for centuries. Even today, you can walk through sections of these markets that are virtually unchanged from medieval times. This rich history created a unique Syrian identity that blends Arab, Persian, Ottoman, and French influences. You'll see it in the architecture: Roman columns supporting Islamic arches, with Ottoman decorative elements and French colonial touches. You'll taste it in the food: Persian rice techniques combined with Arab spices, and Ottoman cooking methods. You'll hear it in the language: Arabic peppered with Turkish, Kurdish, Armenian, and French words that reflect centuries of cultural mixing. But perhaps the most important thing to understand about Syrian geography is how it shaped the people. Living at this crossroads meant Syrians had to become masters of adaptation, negotiation, and resilience. They learned to welcome strangers because today's stranger might be tomorrow's trading partner. They developed a culture of hospitality that treats guests as gifts from God because, historically, your survival might depend on the kindness of strangers. This geographical position also made Syria incredibly wealthy for most of its history. The Silk Road, that famous trade route connecting China to Europe, passed right through Syrian cities. Merchants would stop in Damascus and Aleppo to rest, resupply, and trade. This created a merchant culture that valued education, languages, and cultural sophistication. Even today, you meet taxi drivers in Damascus who speak 4 languages and can discuss history with the depth of university professors. Step into any Syrian home at 6 in the evening, and you'll witness something that might shock Americans accustomed to grabbing dinner on the run. The entire extended family, sometimes 15 to 20 people, gathers around a table groaning under the weight of dozens of dishes. This isn't a special occasion. This is Tuesday. Family is the cornerstone of Syrian society in a way that goes far beyond Western concepts. In Syria, your family isn't just the people you see on holidays. They're your social security system, your business network, your entertainment, and your identity, all rolled into one. Syrian families typically include grandparents, parents, children, aunts, uncles, and cousins, all living within a few blocks of each other, often in the same building. This tight family structure means that when economic times get tough, and they've been tough for over a decade, families pool resources in ways that make $600 go incredibly far. Grandmothers cook massive meals that feed everyone. Uncles share transportation. Cousins babysit each other's children. What might cost a nuclear family $2,000 a month to manage costs an extended Syrian family $600. Because of this resource sharing, the daily rhythm of Syrian life revolves around these family connections. Men typically wake early for morning prayers, then head to work or their shops in the souks. Women, and this might surprise people who have stereotypes about Middle Eastern women, often run businesses, teach school, or work in offices. Syrian women have some of the highest education rates in the Arab world. And in cities like Damascus, you'll see women in everything from traditional dress to the latest European fashions. But it's the afternoon and evening when Syrian social life really comes alive. Around 4 o'clock, the streets fill with people visiting relatives, conducting business, or simply socializing. Children play in the streets under the watchful eyes of every adult in the neighborhood. Because in Syrian culture, every child is everyone's responsibility. The concept of privacy that Americans value so highly barely exists in traditional Syrian culture. Your neighbors know when you're sick, when you're celebrating, when you're struggling financially, and when you need help. This might sound intrusive to American ears, but it creates a social safety net that government programs can't match. When someone loses their job, the community rallies with job leads, meals, and financial support. When someone gets married, the entire neighborhood celebrates for days. Religious life weaves through daily activities, rather than being compartmentalized into Sunday services. You'll hear the call to prayer 5 times a day, and you'll see Muslims pause whatever they're doing to pray, sometimes right in their shops or offices. Christians, who make up about 10% of the population, attend churches that have been operating continuously for over 1,500 years. The fascinating thing is how these religious communities interact. It is common to see Muslim families attending Christian weddings, and Christian families breaking the Ramadan fast with Muslim neighbors. Syrian hospitality isn't just cultural politeness, it's a survival strategy that developed over centuries. In a region where political situations could change overnight, maintaining good relationships with everyone was essential. Today, this translates into a culture where refusing someone's invitation to tea is almost insulting, and where guests are offered the best food in the house even if it means the family eats less. Later, Syrian cuisine represents 4,000 years of culinary evolution, where every conquering empire left behind recipes that melded with local ingredients. The result is a food culture so rich and complex that UNESCO should probably give it heritage status. Let's start with the economics, because this is where Syrian food culture gets really interesting for anyone trying to understand how to live on $600 a month. A typical Syrian breakfast: fresh bread, labneh cheese, olives, tomatoes, cucumbers, and tea costs about 50 cents per person when prepared at home. Compare that to an American breakfast at McDonald's, and you're really looking at food that is not only cheaper, but arguably more nutritious, and definitely more flavorful. The secret is that Syrians shop daily in local markets where relationships with vendors matter more than prices on shelves. Your neighborhood vegetable seller knows your family's preferences, gives you the best produce, and often extends credit during tough times. Your baker has been making bread the same way his grandfather did, using techniques that require no preservatives because the bread is baked fresh twice daily. Syrian bread deserves its own documentary. The flatbread, called kubs, is baked in ovens that reach temperatures of over 1,000 degrees. The result is bread that's crispy outside, soft inside, and serves as both food and utensil. Syrians use bread to scoop up hummus, wrap around grilled meat, or simply tear off pieces to share. A family of 4 goes through about 10 loaves a day, but at 5 cents per loaf, bread costs about 50 cents daily for the entire family. Then there's the famous mezze culture, those small plates that Americans have discovered in Lebanese restaurants. In Syria, mezze isn't restaurant food. It's how families eat dinner every night. Picture 15 to 20 small dishes spread across the table. Hummus made with chickpeas that have been soaking since yesterday morning, baba ganoush from eggplants charred over open flames, tabbouleh with parsley chopped so fine it looks like green snow kibble with bulgur wheat and lamb mixed with spices that take 20 minutes to list. The genius of mezze isn't just culinary, it's economic and social. Small portions of many dishes mean families can eat luxuriously even when meat is expensive. 1 pound of lamb becomes kibbeh for 6 people when mixed with bulgur and spices. A few sardines become a feast when combined with tahini, lemon, and fresh vegetables. Syrian tea culture operates on a completely different level from Western coffee culture. Tea isn't just a beverage, it's a social institution. Syrian tea is served in small glasses, brewed strong, and sweetened with sugar that's added during brewing, not after. The tea ceremony can last for hours, with multiple rounds of increasingly light tea as water is added to the pot. But it's the coffee culture that really reveals Syrian sophistication. Arabic coffee, not Turkish coffee, as Syrians will quickly correct you, is prepared using beans that are roasted, ground, and brewed using techniques passed down through generations. The coffee is boiled 3 times in a special pot called a dala, with cardamom and sometimes rose water added for fragrance. The result is a coffee so intense and aromatic that American coffee tastes like colored water in comparison. Coffee houses, called kawa, serve as informal community centers where men and increasingly women gather to play backgammon, smoke water pipes, discuss politics, and conduct business. These coffee houses charge about 25 cents for coffee and provide unlimited social entertainment for families managing tight budgets. Coffee houses offer affordable social life that doesn't require expensive entertainment. Syrian sweets represent another universe entirely. Baklava in Syria isn't the heavy, overly sweet version Americans know from Greek restaurants. Syrian baklava uses paper-thin phyllo dough, premium pistachios from Aleppo, and a honey syrup delicately flavored with orange blossom water. The result is a pastry so light and complex that French pâtissiers travel to Damascus to learn the techniques. Mammal cookies, filled with dates or nuts and delicately spiced, are prepared for holidays using wooden molds carved specifically for each family. These molds are family heirlooms passed down through generations, and the cookies they produce are so distinctive that neighbors can identify which family made them just by looking. The economic wisdom of Syrian food culture becomes clear when you consider that a family spending $150 monthly on food, about 25% of that $600 budget eats better than most American families spending $800 monthly on groceries. The secret isn't just lower costs, it's a food culture that prioritizes flavor, nutrition, and social connection over convenience and packaging. Syrian women's lives present fascinating contradictions that challenge both Western stereotypes and traditional Middle Eastern expectations. In Damascus today, you'll see women wearing everything from full Islamic dress to European designer clothing, often walking down the same street, often working in the same offices, and often being related to each other. The reality is that Syrian women's experiences vary dramatically based on family background, education level, geographic location, and religious sect. In urban areas like Damascus and Aleppo, women comprise over 60% of university students and work in virtually every profession, from medicine to engineering to business ownership, Rural areas tend to be more traditional, but even there, women often manage family businesses and hold significant influence within their communities. Syrian women's education levels might surprise Americans who assume Middle Eastern women lack educational opportunities. Syria has had co-educational universities since the 1960s, and women routinely outperform men academically. Female doctors, lawyers, teachers, and engineers are common enough that they don't attract special attention. What's interesting is how this professional success coexists with traditional family expectations. Most Syrian women, regardless of their career achievements, are expected to marry and have children. But expected doesn't mean forced. Syrian families invest heavily in their daughters' education precisely because educated women make better marriages and contribute more to family prosperity. The dowry system, while still practiced, increasingly flows both ways, with educated women bringing professional earning potential to marriages. Dating in Syrian culture operates according to unwritten rules that vary significantly between families and regions. In more traditional families, dating as Americans understand that casual relationships without marriage intentions doesn't exist. Instead, there's a formal courtship process where families meet, compatibility is assessed, and relationships develop with marriage as the explicit goal. However, in urban areas and among more educated families, informal dating is increasingly common. Young Syrians meet at universities, through mutual friends, or at social events. They might spend time together in groups, communicate through social media, and develop relationships that resemble Western dating patterns. The key difference is discretion. These relationships are kept private from extended family until they become serious. The concept of honor, which Western media often portrays negatively, operates more subtly than outsiders typically understand. Family honor isn't just about women's behavior. It encompasses the entire family's reputation for integrity, generosity, and social contribution. Women contribute to family honor through education, professional success, and community involvement as much as through traditional roles. Marriage traditions in Syria blend ancient customs with modern realities. Engagement parties can last 3 days and involve hundreds of guests. But the actual wedding ceremony might be quite simple. Families spend months planning celebrations that showcase their hospitality and social connections. These aren't just parties. They're demonstrations of the family's ability to maintain cultural traditions and social relationships. The economic aspects of marriage have evolved significantly. Traditional expectations that men provide housing and financial support continue, but increasingly, couples combine resources to establish households. This is where that $600 monthly budget becomes particularly interesting. Young Syrian couples often live with extended family initially, sharing expenses and responsibilities until they can afford independent housing. Women's roles within marriage have shifted considerably from previous generations. While Syrian wives are still expected to manage households and child rearing, they're also expected to contribute financially when possible. This dual responsibility creates stress, but also provides women with economic independence and social influence that their mothers might not have experienced. The social life of Syrian women centers around extensive female networks that provide everything from childcare to business opportunities. Women visit each other daily, share resources, and maintain relationships that span generations. These networks function as informal economic systems where women exchange services, share costs, and support each other through financial difficulties. Syrian women's fashion choices reflect this blend of tradition and modernity. In Damascus, you'll see women wearing hijab with the latest European clothing styles, or women in Western dress shopping alongside women in traditional Islamic clothing. Fashion serves as a form of personal expression while respecting family and community expectations. The changing political situation adds another layer of complexity. Syrian women have lived through decades of conflict while maintaining families, careers, and communities. Their resilience and adaptability have strengthened their social position, and many expect increased opportunities as Syria rebuilds and modernizes. Syrian religious and cultural celebrations offer windows into a society that has maintained traditions through millennia of change. These are museum pieces or tourist attractions. They array living traditions that continue to shape daily life and community relationships. Ramadan in Syria transforms the entire social rhythm of the country. As sunset approaches during the holy month, streets that have been quiet during the day suddenly burst with activity. Families prepare elaborate iftar meals, the evening feast that breaks the daily fast. The sound of the Maghrib prayer call signals the moment when an entire country sits down to eat simultaneously. Syrian iftar meals during Ramadan demonstrate the economics of celebration on a $600 budget. Families save money throughout the year specifically for Ramadan expenses, and the community support system kicks into high gear. Wealthy families sponsor iftar meals for entire neighborhoods. Mosques organize community dinners where anyone can eat regardless of their ability to contribute. Food vendors offer special Ramadan discounts, and employers often adjust work schedules to accommodate religious observances. The pre-dawn meal, suhoor, creates another daily community ritual. Streets fill with people walking to and from neighborhood bakeries, buying fresh bread before the day's fast begins. Coffee houses stay open all night during Ramadan, providing social spaces for people who prefer to stay awake rather than wake up for the early meal. Eid al-Fitr, the celebration marking Ramadan's end, involves 3 days of visiting, feasting, and gift-giving that rivals Christmas in its social and economic impact. Syrian families spend weeks preparing special Eid cookies called mamul, using family recipes in wooden molds that are generational heirlooms. Children receive new clothes and money gifts from every adult they visit. The economic circulation during Eid significantly boosts local businesses and provides income for craftspeople, bakers, and merchants. Christian celebrations in Syria offer fascinating examples of religious coexistence. Syrian Christians celebrate Christmas and Easter using both Western and Eastern Orthodox traditions. Christmas celebrations often extend from December 25th through January 7th, accommodating both Catholic and Orthodox calendars. These celebrations happen alongside Islamic holidays, with Muslim neighbors often participating in Christian festivities and vice versa. The economic integration of religious celebrations means that Syrian Muslims often work in businesses that serve Christian holiday needs, and Syrian Christians work in industries that support Islamic celebrations. This creates economic interdependence that transcends religious differences and contributes to Syria's historically tolerant social atmosphere. Wedding celebrations in Syria represent massive community investments that can cost families thousands of dollars, money they often don't have in bank accounts, but raised through community networks. Syrian weddings aren't just ceremonies. They're demonstrations of social relationships and community support systems. The henna ceremony, held the night before the wedding, involves elaborate decorations applied to the bride's hands and feet using patterns passed down through generations. Professional henna artists charge modest fees, but the real cost is in hosting dozens of female relatives and friends for an evening of music, dancing, and celebration. Syrian wedding receptions can last until dawn, with live music, traditional dancing, and feasts that showcase family hospitality. Guests contribute money gifts that often cover most wedding expenses, creating a community investment system where everyone contributes to everyone else's celebrations over time. Music and dance traditions in Syria blend influences from across the Middle East and Mediterranean. The dabk, a traditional line dance, is performed at virtually every celebration. The dance requires no special training. Everyone joins hands and follows the leader in steps that can continue for hours. Musicians play traditional instruments like the oud, a stringed instrument ancestral to the European lute, and the tabla drums, alongside modern keyboards and sound systems. Syrian folk music includes both religious and secular traditions. Quranic recitation is considered high art, with famous reciters drawing audiences that fill stadiums. Secular music ranges from classical Arabic compositions to modern pop that blends traditional melodies with contemporary instruments and production techniques. The Mawlid, celebrating the Prophet Muhammad's birthday, involves community gatherings where religious stories are recounted, traditional songs are performed, and communal meals are shared. These celebrations happen in neighborhoods throughout Syria, creating networks of social and religious connection that strengthen community bonds. Now let's break down exactly how someone lives on $600 monthly in Syria and lives well, not just survives. This isn't theoretical. These are actual budgets that Syrian families manage every day. Housing represents the largest expense, but Syrian housing operates on principles that Americans might find surprising. A typical one-bedroom apartment in central Damascus rents for about $135 monthly. A three-bedroom apartment suitable for a family costs approximately $335 monthly. But these figures don't tell the complete story, because Syrian housing includes extended family arrangements that dramatically reduce per-person costs. Syrian families often live in multi-generational arrangements where grandparents, parents, and adult children share large apartments or houses. A three-bedroom apartment that costs $335 might house 8 to 10 people from 3 generations. This brings the per-person housing cost to about $35 to $40 monthly. Americans might see this as overcrowding, but Syrians see it as economic wisdom and family solidarity. Utilities in Syria cost significantly less than Americans pay, partly due to government subsidies that have continued even through years of economic crisis. Electricity, water, heating, and garbage collection for a typical apartment cost about $75 monthly. Internet service costs around $30 monthly for decent speeds. Mobile phone service with calls and data costs less than $9 monthly. Food expenses demonstrate where Syrian culture really shines in terms of budget management. A Syrian family spending $150 monthly on food eats more variety, fresher ingredients, and more flavorful meals than most American families spending $800 monthly on groceries. Here's how it works. Syrian families shop daily in local markets where they have relationships with vendors. Your vegetable seller knows your family's preferences, gives you the best produce, and often extends credit during tough times. Prices are negotiable, quality is guaranteed by personal relationships, and waste is minimal because you buy only what you need each day. A typical daily food shopping trip might cost $4 to $5 for a family of 4 and include fresh bread, still warm from the oven, vegetables for several meals, fruit, dairy products, and often meat or fish. These aren't American-style portions. They're ingredients that will be transformed through Syrian cooking techniques into multiple meals. Syrian cooking maximizes flavor and nutrition while minimizing costs through techniques developed over centuries of economic necessity. A small amount of meat becomes substantial meals when combined with grains, legumes, and vegetables. Lentils, chickpeas, bulgur wheat, and rice serve as protein-rich foundations for dishes that satisfy hunger and provide nutrition at minimal cost. Transportation costs in Syria remain remarkably low despite economic challenges. Public bus transportation within Damascus costs about 10 cents per ride. A monthly pass for unlimited public transportation costs $8.50. Taxi rides across the city cost $1 to $3 depending on distance. Many Syrians walk or bicycle for daily transportation, treating cars as luxury items rather than necessities. For families managing $600 budgets, transportation strategy becomes important. Living near work, schools, and markets reduces transportation costs while providing more time for family and social activities. Syrian cities were designed for walking, with neighborhood shops, schools, and services within walking distance of residential areas. Healthcare in Syria operates through a combination of government services and private providers. Government healthcare is heavily subsidized and available to all citizens, though quality and availability have suffered during years of crisis. Private healthcare costs significantly less than American medical care, but more than government services. Many families budget about $30 to $50 monthly for healthcare needs. Education costs vary dramatically between government and private schools. Government education through university is free for Syrian citizens, though families often pay for supplies, transportation, and extra tutoring. Private school education costs $25 to $300 monthly depending on school quality and services. Clothing and personal items represent flexible expenses that Syrian families adjust based on available resources. Syrian families often spend $20 to $40 monthly on clothing and personal care items. But this can stretch much further through community networks where families share, trade, and hand down clothing and household items. Entertainment and social expenses in Syrian budgets might surprise Americans accustomed to expensive entertainment costs. Syrian social life centers around family visits, community celebrations, and activities that cost little or nothing. Coffee house visits cost about 50 cents per person. Movie tickets cost around $3. Most entertainment happens in homes and community spaces where costs are shared among many families. The key to understanding how $600 works in Syria is recognizing that Syrian families optimize for community relationships, resource sharing, and long-term stability rather than individual convenience and privacy. This creates economic efficiencies that simply don't exist in American-style nuclear family arrangements. Getting around Syria offers insights into how societies can function efficiently without everyone owning cars. Syrian transportation systems developed over thousands of years, combining ancient walking routes with modern public transportation in ways that serve communities effectively while keeping costs minimal. Damascus public transportation operates on principles that American cities abandoned decades ago, but are now rediscovering as sustainable urban planning. The city center is designed for pedestrians, with narrow streets that discourage car traffic and encourage walking. Neighborhood shops, schools, banks, and services are within walking distance of residential areas, reducing the need for daily transportation. The microbus system in Syrian cities deserves special attention because it demonstrates how communities can create efficient transportation without massive government investment. Microbuses are privately owned vehicles that operate on fixed routes with flexible stops. They cost about 10 cents per ride within city zones and provide door-to-door service. That is more convenient than traditional bus systems. Syrian microbus culture creates social interactions that Americans miss in their car-centric transportation. Passengers chat with each other and the driver, share news and gossip, and maintain community connections during their commutes. Drivers know their regular passengers, adjust routes for special needs, and provide informal neighborhood communication networks for longer distances between cities. Syrian transportation combines modern buses with traditional shared taxi services. Bus transportation between major cities costs $3 to $8 depending on distance, and provides comfortable, reliable service. Shared taxis charge more but offer flexibility and speed for travelers willing to pay premium prices. Walking culture in Syria extends beyond transportation into lifestyle philosophy. Syrian cities preserve ancient walking routes that connect neighborhoods, markets, and religious sites through networks of pedestrian streets and covered walkways. These aren't tourist attractions. They're daily transportation routes that families have used for generations. The famous covered souks of Damascus and Aleppo represent sophisticated urban planning that creates climate-controlled walking environments. These covered markets stretch for miles underground and through buildings, providing protected walkways that connect residential neighborhoods with commercial districts. During summer heat or winter rain, Syrians can walk across entire city sections without exposure to weather. Syrian bicycle culture is experiencing revival as economic pressures make car ownership less affordable. Bicycles cost $50 to $150 for decent quality and require minimal maintenance. Many Syrian families own one or two bicycles that serve for local transportation, exercise, and recreation. Cities are adding bicycle lanes and parking areas to accommodate increased bicycle use. Car ownership in Syria represents luxury rather than necessity for most families. Cars cost significantly more than in America due to import taxes and currency exchange rates. A basic new car costs $22,000 to $30,000, representing several years of income for typical Syrian families. Gasoline costs about $8 per gallon, making car operation expensive even for families who can afford to purchase vehicles. Syrian families who own cars often share them among extended family members, creating informal car-sharing systems that reduce per-family transportation costs. One car might serve 3 or for related families to coordinate schedules and share expenses for fuel, maintenance, and repairs. The lifestyle implications of Syrian transportation systems create social patterns that differ dramatically from American suburban life. Because most daily activities happen within walking distance, Syrian families spend more time in their neighborhoods, developing stronger relationships with local merchants, neighbors, and community institutions. Syrian children grow up with independence that American parents might find surprising, because neighborhoods are designed for pedestrian safety and community supervision. Syrian children walk to school, visit friends, and run errands from early ages. This creates community connections and practical skills that suburban American children often don't develop. Evening lifestyle in Syrian cities revolves around walking culture that transforms streets into social spaces. After sunset, families emerge from their homes for evening walks, visits to relatives, and social activities. Streets filled with children playing, adults chatting with neighbors, and vendors selling snacks and drinks from mobile carts. The economic impact of Syrian transportation culture extends beyond individual savings to community economic development. Pedestrian-friendly neighborhoods support small businesses that depend on foot traffic. Local merchants know their customers personally and extend credit during difficult times. This creates economic relationships that provide stability during larger economic challenges. Syrian transportation culture also influences housing choices and family arrangements. Because transportation is easier and cheaper for everyone, families can live in multi-generational arrangements without the logistical complications that American families might face. Grandparents can maintain independence while staying connected to family support networks. Syria contains archaeological and natural treasures that would make it one of the world's top tourist destinations if political conditions permitted safe travel. The country holds 6 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, representing civilizations spanning over 5,000 years of continuous human habitation. The old city of Damascus deserves recognition as one of humanity's greatest urban achievements. Designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1979, it contains 125 monuments from different historical periods, all within walking distance of each other. The Umayyad Mosque, built in 705 AD on the site of a Roman temple dedicated to Jupiter, represents architectural fusion that captures Syria's role as a crossroads of civilizations. Walking through Damascus' old city feels like traveling through time. Roman columns support Islamic arches. Ottoman decorative elements blend with Mamluk stonework. French colonial balconies overlook medieval courtyards. These art museum displays their functioning neighborhoods where families have lived for generations, maintaining traditions while adapting to modern life. The famous Straight Street, mentioned in the Bible as the location where St. Paul recovered his sight, remains a functioning commercial thoroughfare, lined with shops selling everything from traditional crafts to modern electronics. The street demonstrates urban continuity. The same route has served as a main commercial artery for over 2,000 years. Syrian traditional houses in the old city showcase architectural sophistication that modern builders struggle to match. These houses are built around central courtyards with fountains, surrounded by rooms that stay cool in summer and warm in winter through natural ventilation and thermal mass. Many families still live in these houses, maintaining architectural heritage while enjoying natural climate control that requires no electricity. The souks of Damascus represent commercial architecture refined over centuries. The Hamadiya souk, covered by a metal roof installed during Ottoman times, stretches for over a mile through the heart of the old city. Shops specialize in goods that reflect Syria's position on ancient trade routes, spices from India, textiles from Central Asia, metalwork using techniques passed down through generations of craftsmen. Aleppo's citadel, when restoration is complete, will again rank among the world's most impressive fortifications. This massive structure has been continuously fortified for over 5,000 years, with each civilization adding defensive improvements. The citadel's location provides commanding views of northern Syria and southern Turkey, illustrating its strategic importance throughout history. The ancient city of Palmyra, though damaged during recent conflicts, contains Roman ruins that rival those in Rome itself. Palmyra's location made it a crucial stop on Silk Road trade routes, and its well-funded construction of temples, theaters, and public buildings that demonstrate Roman provincial architecture at its finest. Basra, in southern Syria, contains one of the world's best-preserved Roman theaters, still used for cultural performances. The theater seats 15,000 people and demonstrates Roman engineering expertise and acoustics. A whisper on stage can be heard clearly in the top rows without amplification. Crac des Chevaliers represents medieval military architecture at its peak. This Crusader castle, built on strategic high ground, withstood numerous sieges and remains virtually intact. The castle's design influenced European castle construction for centuries and demonstrates the military engineering sophistication of medieval Syria. Syria's natural beauty extends far beyond historical sites. The Mediterranean coastline features beaches, mountains, and ancient coastal cities like Latakia. The anti-Lebanon mountains provide skiing in winter and hiking in summer, with views extending across the Levant. The Euphrates River Valley contains archaeological sites and natural areas that support diverse wildlife. The Kalamau Mountains, north of Damascus, offer escape from urban heat during summer months. Syrian families traditionally spend weekends in mountain villages where temperatures are cooler and the pace of life is slower. These villages maintain traditional architecture and agricultural practices that provide insights into rural Syrian life. Syria's eastern desert regions contain oasis cities and Bedouin communities that preserve nomadic traditions. These areas, when security permits access, offer experiences of desert life that haven't changed significantly in centuries. Bedouin hospitality traditions and desert survival skills represent cultural knowledge that few societies still maintain. The Euphrates and Orontes river valleys provide fertile agricultural land that has supported dense populations for millennia. These river systems created the agricultural surplus that funded Syria's historical cities and continue to support rural communities that maintain traditional farming methods. Alongside modern techniques, Syrian gardens and agricultural terraces demonstrate landscape management techniques refined over thousands of years. Ancient irrigation systems still function, providing water for crops and gardens that create green oases and otherwise arid landscapes. These systems represent engineering knowledge that modern developers are rediscovering as sustainable water management becomes more important. The security situation in Syria has improved dramatically since the fall of the Assad regime in December 2024, though conditions vary significantly between different regions and cities. Damascus and other major urban areas have seen the establishment of new security arrangements under the interim government led by former HTS officials, with efforts to maintain public order and essential services. Current security conditions in government-controlled areas like Damascus are generally stable for residents, though international travel advisories still recommend against tourism due to ongoing political transitions. Local residents report that daily life is normalized considerably, with markets, schools, and businesses operating regularly. The new authorities have established tourist police units and are working to restore confidence in civilian security. Healthcare in Syria presents a complex picture of damaged infrastructure alongside remarkable human resilience and adaptation. The healthcare system, severely impacted by years of conflict, continues to function through a combination of government facilities, private clinics, and international humanitarian support. Government healthcare remains heavily subsidized and theoretically available to all Syrian citizens, though quality and resources vary significantly between facilities. Public hospitals provide basic care at minimal cost, but patients often must purchase their own medications and supplies. For a family managing a $600 monthly budget, government healthcare represents essential access to medical services that would otherwise be unaffordable. Private healthcare in Syria costs considerably less than American medical care, but more than government services. A typical doctor's visit costs $10 to $25. Prescription medications cost $5 to $20 per month for chronic conditions, and basic medical procedures cost hundreds rather than thousands of dollars. Many Syrian families budget $30 to $50 monthly for healthcare expenses, adjusting based on family health needs. Syrian healthcare culture emphasizes preventive care and traditional remedies alongside modern medicine. Families maintain extensive knowledge of herbal treatments, dietary therapies, and traditional healing practices that reduce dependence on expensive medical interventions. This traditional knowledge, combined with strong family support systems, helps families manage health issues within tight budgets. The resilience of Syrian medical professionals deserves special recognition. Many doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers remained in the country throughout years of conflict, maintaining medical services under extremely difficult conditions. This dedication preserved healthcare infrastructure and expertise that continues to serve communities today. Education in Syria represents one of the country's greatest achievements and ongoing challenges. Government education through university remains free for Syrian citizens, representing enormous value for families managing limited budgets. This educational access has created high literacy rates and a well-educated population that forms the foundation for Syria's eventual reconstruction. Syrian primary and secondary education emphasizes academic rigor, with students studying Arabic, mathematics, sciences, social studies, and foreign languages from early grades. The curriculum reflects Syria's multicultural heritage, with students learning about Islamic, Christian, and ancient Middle Eastern civilizations as part of their standard education. University education in Syria has historically attracted students from across the Arab world, with Damascus University ranking among the region's most prestigious institutions. Syrian universities offer degree programs in medicine, engineering, literature, and sciences that meet international standards. The fact that this education remains free provides opportunities for social mobility that exist in few other countries. The economic impact of free education cannot be overstated for families living on $600 monthly budgets, while families pay for supplies, transportation, and sometimes private tutoring. The basic education that costs tens of thousands of dollars in America remains accessible to all Syrian families regardless of income level. Syrian educational culture emphasizes respect for learning and teachers. That creates classroom environments conducive to academic achievement. Students are expected to show formal respect to teachers and to take education seriously as a path to personal and family advancement. This cultural attitude contributes to educational outcomes that often exceed those in wealthier countries. Technical and vocational education in Syria provides practical skills training that connects directly to employment opportunities. Students can learn trades like carpentry, metalworking, electrical work, and automotive repair through programs that combine classroom instruction with apprenticeships in local businesses. The role of education in Syrian family economics is particularly important for understanding how $600 monthly budgets work over time. Educated family members earn higher incomes, create business opportunities, and provide knowledge that helps families navigate bureaucratic and economic challenges. Investment in education, even when money is tight, represents long-term economic strategy. Syrian women's educational achievements are particularly noteworthy, with female students often outperforming male students academically and comprising over 60% of university students. In many programs, this educational success translates into professional opportunities that contribute significantly to family incomes and social advancement. Syria's visa and entry requirements have undergone significant changes following the political transition in December 2024. The new interim government has expressed intentions to welcome international visitors and restore Syria's tourism industry, though practical implementation remains in development. Current visa requirements vary based on nationality and purpose of visit. Most international visitors need visas obtained through Syrian embassies or consulates, though some Arab nationals can obtain visas on arrival. Processing times and requirements are still being standardized under the new government, so potential visitors should contact Syrian diplomatic missions for current information. The practical reality is that most Western governments continue to advise against travel to Syria due to ongoing security concerns and political uncertainties. However, some journalists Aid workers and business people are beginning to visit under careful arrangements with local partners and security coordination. Currency issues present significant practical challenges for anyone considering travel or residence in Syria. The Syrian pound has experienced dramatic devaluation over recent years, though this makes Syria extremely affordable for anyone with foreign currency. The official exchange rate differs significantly from black market rates, creating complex currency exchange situations. Most transactions in Syria operate on a cash basis, with credit cards and electronic payments having limited acceptance. Visitors need to bring sufficient cash in US dollars or euros, which can be exchanged through official channels or informal currency dealers. Banking services exist but may have limited international connectivity. Language barriers are less significant than many visitors expect. Arabic is the official language, but English and French are widely spoken in urban areas, particularly among educated populations. Many Syrians speak multiple languages due to the country's historical role as a regional crossroads. Accommodation options in Syria range from budget hotels costing $15 to $30 per night to higher-end establishments charging $50 to $100 per night. Many international hotel chains suspended operations during the conflict years, but local hotels continue to operate and provide services that meet international standards at significantly lower costs than comparable accommodations elsewhere. Transportation infrastructure, while damaged in some areas, continues to function for civilian purposes. Damascus International Airport operates flights to regional destinations, though international connections remain limited. Ground transportation between cities operates regularly, with bus services providing reliable connections at very reasonable costs. Internet and communication services in Syria have improved significantly, with mobile phone coverage available throughout most populated areas. Internet speeds may be slower than Western standards, but connectivity is adequate for basic communication needs. International calling rates are reasonable, and social media platforms are generally accessible. Cultural considerations for visitors to Syria emphasize respect for local customs and religious practices. Syria's diverse religious communities maintain different customs, but general guidelines include modest dress, particularly when visiting religious sites, and awareness of prayer times and religious holidays that may affect business hours and social activities. Shopping and commerce in Syria offer unique opportunities for visitors interested in traditional crafts and authentic Middle Eastern goods. Syrian markets sell handmade textiles, metalwork, woodcrafts, and spices at prices that reflect local economic conditions rather than tourist markup pricing. Food safety in Syria generally meets reasonable standards, particularly in established restaurants and hotels. Street food, while delicious and authentic, requires usual precautions regarding hygiene and food handling. Syrian hospitality often includes abundant food offerings, and refusing food can be considered impolite. Medical facilities in Syria provide adequate care for routine health needs, though visitors with serious medical conditions should ensure access to appropriate facilities. Travel insurance that covers medical evacuation might be advisable given limited specialized medical facilities. Photography restrictions in Syria focus primarily on military installations and government buildings, with most cultural and commercial areas open for photography. However, visitors should ask permission before photographing people, particularly women, and should be aware that some religious sites have photography restrictions. As we reach the end of our journey through the Syria you never imagined, let's step back and consider what we've really discovered. This isn't just a story about living on $600 a month, though that economic reality reveals profound truths about community, resourcefulness, and different ways of defining prosperity. This is a story about resilience that goes beyond mere survival. Syrian families didn't just endure decades of conflict, they maintained cultural traditions, educational aspiration, and social connections that kept their civilization intact when everything around them seemed to be falling apart. They found ways to celebrate weddings with 3-day festivals, even when budgets were impossibly tight. They kept ancient crafts alive in workshops passed down through generations. They maintain university programs and literary traditions and musical heritage. Because these things matter more than immediate comfort, the Syria we've explored challenges fundamental assumptions about wealth, happiness, and social organization. American families spending $4,000 monthly often struggle to find the time and social connections that Syrian families create naturally while spending $600. This isn't about money, it's about different approaches to human relationships and community organization. Syrian hospitality culture, which treats strangers as gifts from God, emerges from deep understanding that survival depends on mutual support and community cooperation. This isn't primitive thinking. It's sophisticated social organization that creates security and meaning that individual wealth can't provide. The food culture we explored, where families gather nightly for elaborate meals prepared from simple ingredients, demonstrates how Syrian society prioritizes shared pleasure and cultural transmission over convenience and efficiency. These meals aren't just nutrition. They're daily investments in family relationships and cultural continuity. Syrian women's experiences balancing traditional expectations with modern professional achievements show how societies can change while maintaining cultural identity. Syrian women who earn university degrees while learning traditional cooking techniques aren't caught between two worlds. They're creating new worlds that honor their heritage while adapting to contemporary realities. The economic lessons from Syrian daily life extend far beyond budgeting tips. Syrian families demonstrate how community relationships can create economic security that individual savings accounts can't match when your neighbors are invested in your success, when your extended family shares resources, when your local merchants extend credit based on personal relationships. You have economic resilience that doesn't depend on banks or government programs. Syrian cities, designed for walking and community interaction, create social environments that suburban American communities try to recreate through expensive planned developments. The difference is that Syrian communities developed organically over centuries, creating urban environments that support human relationships rather than automobile convenience. The educational culture in Syria, where learning is respected, teachers are honored, and families invest in education even during economic hardship, produces results that wealthier societies struggle to match. Free university education combined with cultural emphasis on learning creates opportunities for social advancement that exists regardless of family wealth. As Syria enters a new political era following the fall of the Assad regime, the cultural strengths we've explored will be crucial for reconstruction and development. Syrian communities that maintain social connections through years of conflict now have the foundation needed to rebuild institutions and economic systems. The new interim government faces enormous challenges in rebuilding infrastructure, establishing security, and creating economic opportunities, but they're building on a society that never lost its cultural identity, educational traditions, or community relationships. These social assets represent wealth that can't be measured in dollars, but determines whether reconstruction efforts will succeed. Syrian refugees around the world carry these cultural strengths with them, contributing to communities from Detroit to Berlin. Their experiences of maintaining dignity and cultural identity during extreme hardship provide lessons that extend far beyond Middle Eastern politics. The Syria you never imagine isn't just about one country and one region. It's about alternative ways of organizing human societies that prioritize community relationships, cultural continuity, and shared prosperity over individual accumulation and competitive advantage. American communities struggling with social isolation, economic insecurity, and cultural disconnection might learn from Syrian approaches to family cooperation, neighborhood relationships, and community support systems. These aren't exotic foreign practices, they're human social technologies that worked for centuries before modern urban planning prioritized efficiency over community. The $600 monthly budget that seemed impossible at the beginning of our journey now makes sense as part of an integrated social and economic system. Syrian families don't just live on less money. They live within different systems of mutual support that make money less important for security and happiness. Syrian cuisine, architecture, music, and crafts represent cultural achievements that enrich human civilization. These traditions survived conquests by Romans, Mongols, Ottomans, and French colonizers. They'll survive current challenges and continue contributing to global culture in ways we can't yet imagine. The Syria beyond the headlines is a Syria of morning calls to prayer, echoing across ancient stone buildings of children playing in streets, watched by entire neighborhoods of evening visits that strengthen relationships across generations, of students walking to universities that offer world-class education for free of merchants, who know their customers' families and extend credit based on trust built over decades. This Syria exists right now. Families are gathering for dinner in Damascus courtyards, students are studying in Aleppo libraries, craftsmen are creating beautiful objects in workshops there. Grandfathers establish. Bakers are making bread using techniques refined over millennia. Children are learning to read in schools that never closed even during the worst fighting. Syria's future remains uncertain, but its cultural foundation remains solid. The families who maintain traditions and relationships through impossible circumstances now have the social capital needed to rebuild their country and contribute to global civilization. The Syria you never imagined is the Syria that exists whenever people choose community over isolation, cooperation over competition, and cultural richness over material accumulation. These choices are available to communities everywhere, not just in ancient cities along historic trade routes. As Syria begins its next chapter, the cultural strengths we've explored will determine whether reconstruction creates a society that serves human flourishing or merely restores economic functions. The difference depends on whether Syria's leaders understand that the country's greatest assets aren't natural resources or geographic location, but the social relationships and cultural traditions that kept Syrian civilization alive when everything else was falling apart. The Syria you never imagined is waiting to teach the world lessons about resilience, community, and the kind of prosperity that can't be measured in bank accounts, but determines whether life is worth living.